You're listening to the Fezcast, the Saracens fans podcast, bringing you the independent and unhinged views of the voices in our heads, as well as those of our special guests. To get in touch with us, find the Fezcast on social media and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube and more. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Fezcast. Oh, God knows what number it is now, but it's great to see that Barry's back. You've been a bit busy with work, Barry, haven't you? But it's good to see you back in the hot seat, as it were. About time we got Stadler and Waldorf back in tandem, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good to be back and it's good to get away from work, even if it's only for a week or so.
I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to moan about, but also plenty of good things. One of which we'll do in part 3, but joining us as well is Alex. You must have been excited by the start of the Women's Six Nations and the Pacific Four competition as well.
Yeah, it's good. The Pacific Four series, the matches are in the middle of the night, so I can't watch them live. But other than that, it's good that, yes, international women's rugby is back.
As I say, we'll discuss that in the last part of the show. We're going to talk season tickets and we're also going to talk about injuries. But before that, I just wanted to have a quick word about someone who was integral to the Fezcast in giving us access to a lot of stuff at Saracens. But Ollie Shapley, friend of the Fezcast, was the talent and communications media manager at Saracens for a lot of years. But he's moved on to pastures new. First of all, from all of us in the Fezcast, I want to say thank you to Ollie for everything he did to help us with the Fezcast and giving access to the Saracens players. I mean, sometimes it was a bit like nailing jelly to a wall to try to get in, but, you know, once we got that help from him, he was brilliant. But also, obviously, we want to wish Ollie all the best of luck. If you're listening in, I know Ollie will listen in, so I'll say nice things about him and wish you all the best for the future. But let's talk about season tickets, Barry, because we'll start with you on this one. I'm not a season ticket holder. I'm one of the sofa season ticket holders, and I mean, I've sorted out my HBO Max and everything like that from Discovery. Luckily, my stepson's pretty good at IT, so he did all of that for me. So, but all I've watched so far was a Paris-Roubaix, the race to hell and the cycling on the weekend. But yeah, for you guys who season ticket holders, obviously there's been lots of movement at the club and talking and working out how they make it more attractive. And we know that from when Duncan interviewed Charlie Beale a few weeks ago. But is it good news on the season tickets? Are you happy with what's happened over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think you've got to give the club some credit here. They've listened to what season ticket holders have been saying. We have been saying it for a couple of years now, but they have listened and they have adjusted prices with the prices of the season tickets in the right direction. So actually gone down with the promise that match by match pricing will also go up. So for the last couple of years, I'm probably not the only one, but I've been in a position where I actually pay more for my season ticket seat than the empty seat next to me would cost if I bought it on a match by match basis, which was completely and utterly bizarre. But they've listened, they've put prices down, they've even given people a choice with if they want the Prem Cup games included or not. So there's 2 season ticket prices in each category now. And yeah, credit to the club, they have listened. And I went from someone who probably wasn't going to renew to someone who renewed in about 30 minutes flat.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It is certainly something that perhaps for future that I'll be looking at. I mean, I suppose that's the thing is that it's a comment I always make is, I mean, what would you rather have? 10,000 people in paying £25 a ticket, or would you rather have 2,500 people in paying the equivalent same amount of money? And I suppose the answer is somewhere in the middle, but clearly in previous seasons, they've gone out to attract new fans, which is fine. You have to do that to grow the game. But at some point, you just got to appreciate that your core needs to be looked after, don't you?
You'll have the new fans who will come to events, and if you make a big deal of particular matches, of the big matches, you can get more fans in. But actually, it's also rewarding the loyal supporters who are going to come to every game saying, actually, we'll give you a better price for your season ticket because of the support you give to us.
That's important, isn't it, Barry? And I should think there's an awful lot of people who feel exactly the same way as you. That, it's the same, isn't it, when you do your Sky Sports subscription or whatever it is that, you get a great introductory offer and it gets you there, but then they completely and utterly fleece you the next time you have to renew it and everything because all they're interested in is new business. And sometimes it's better to stop it and restart again almost. Car insurance is the same, isn't it?
It's silly, really, because any business will tell you it's actually easier and more profitable to keep hold of the customers you've got than to try and find new ones. Obviously, insurance, particularly car insurance, is slightly different because there's a legal requirement there. But I think the problem or the mistake that sporting organisations make is that they think there's a premium to be had on loyalty. I mean, no one's going to say, well, that's it, I'll drop my Saracen season ticket and go and watch Leicester Tigers for want of anyone else that could travel to. But they think there's a premium to be had out of loyalty, and really there shouldn't be. They should concentrate on keeping hold of the customers that they've got and then trying to layer on new customers on top of that. And any business will tell you that's the way to go.
Well, I suppose that's the thing, isn't it, Alex? The simple economics of it is that if you bring the season ticket price down, you may get a few more season ticket holders interested. Okay, you make your one-off games a bit more expensive, but then those people come along and enjoy it and they look at to see how much a season ticket is, and it then works out economically viable for them. It's got to be really good for me because I'm travelling quite a distance as well, but that should be how it works, isn't it?
If you make the season tickets cheaper, more people buy them. People are like, well, it doesn't matter if I don't go to every single game. If I go to most of them, I still get my money's worth. Whereas if you make it more expensive, they're like, well, I don't think I can go to every single game. I'm not going to buy them because it's just not worth it.
Of course, as well, is making it easy as well, Barry, that on the games that you can't make it as a season ticket holder, you could transfer it to somebody else who might be able to, you can't go to Leicester Tigers game. I was hoping I might be able to take your ticket. I couldn't for other reasons, but, you make it easier to get the people, just get the bums on the seat, regardless of how it's done. And sometimes, you might have to take a little hit for a greater good.
There's also benefit in that to the club. If I transfer my ticket to someone and they have a great day out against Tigers, they might come back and buy a ticket for the Gloucester game, for the Quins game. So it kind of feeds itself. And I do think that looking after season ticket holders should be, I'm not going to say a priority for the club, but it should be well up the top of their list, I think.
All we could say is well done to Charlie and the rest of the team for listening and for thinking and for making the right decisions there. So we're very easy to criticise on occasion, far less easy to praise. But, in this situation, I think we should all praise them for what they've done there, and long may it continue. And hopefully it will be a successful move by the club. Well, let's have a stop there, and we'll come back and we'll talk injuries.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Hello, this is Akina Gondwe of Saracens Women, and you're listening to the Fezcast, and we are both proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association. For a £10 annual subscription to the SSA, you'll get the chance to buy tickets for away matches, receive a regular newsletter, and an exclusive SSA badge. They also arrange pre-match gatherings and player-coach events. As well as sponsoring both me and the Fezcast, they also sponsor Louis Johnson from the men's team and the Saracens Foundation Track Club. Not bad for £10. You can join up at membermojo.co.uk/SSA. Enjoy the rest of this edition of the Fezcast, and I look forward to seeing you at StoneX. Come on, you Sarries.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back to the Fezcast and the second part. We're going to talk about injuries. Last week on the show, you had James, Duncan and Sam were having a bit of a whinge about the fact that we never seem to hear about injuries anymore. It's sort of like a player gets injured and you think, well, where are they? What's happening? And it's suddenly this week on the social medias and everything like that, we got a whole list of players and their status and how long they're out for and everything. So, Alex, I don't know whether we could take credit for that on the Fezcast, but I think we should do. And, it's good news to see that we are getting this information again.
Fans want to feel involved and they want to know who can they expect to see on team sheets? Can we expect to see people coming back from injury, or are they going to be out for a while? So I think just that communication of stuff like injury lists is important, and it shouldn't have to come from players' own social media of them saying, actually, no, I'm out for the rest of the season, if they choose to share that. Actually, the club's communicating that so we know what's happening with all of the injured players.
It's great to see the ones that are coming back as well, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But first of all, 4 big injuries, Barry, that were reported. We're going to see not see these players anymore this year, and that's Vidicasi Naru, Juan Martin Gonzalez, Elliot Daly, and possibly the unluckiest man in rugby union, the man who the medical room probably will be named after when he ends his career, Andy Onyama Christie. That boy, the only luck he gets is no luck, isn't it? I mean, it's a broken arm this time, isn't he? I mean, we remember his horrific injury against Quins last year, and he ended up actually come back. But I mean, no pun intended, he needs a decent break, doesn't he now? Because he's getting no good ones.
No, this is very true. At least the Andy Onyama Christie treatment room will feature the Duncan Taylor massage table. So he's in pretty good company there. But
have a George Cruz neoprene cabinet.
Andy's been dreadfully unlucky with injuries. To be fair, so has Elliot Daly, of course. He picked up an injury on the Lions tour and was out for a good while. But yeah, I mean, obviously all the players that are injured, we wish them a speedy recovery, but particularly Andy, because he has had some bad luck with injuries, and the rest will do him good, hopefully. And let's look forward to seeing him back firing on all cylinders at the beginning of next season.
Yeah, as well as Juan Martin Gonzalez is another one who probably an enforced rest. I think the way that the season's gone, the social medias from Saracens have changed the attack from playoff decider against Tigers to it being just, we're playing Tigers. It's a big game, Alex. So they're probably turning around and saying, look, you might have been able to strap it up and play through the pain barrier, but is it really worth it? Let's get you in under the knife now and sort it out, which seems to be the sensible thing to do, Alex.
We're not going for any trophies anymore really this season. Let them rest, let them, recover properly, and then they'll be ready to go next season. And then we can really start going from the off next season and building to hopefully winning something, or at least getting into playoff positions. And then not, a couple months into the new season, no, they're now out injured.
The big issue here, Barry, is that we're looking at it now and thinking, well, Juan Martin Gonzalez, Andy Onyama Christie, Bennell's obviously having a bit of an enforced rest at the moment. He's knackered after England international duty. Tom Willis, they're flogging him because he's off to France, and that I don't see him getting too much of a rest. But we seem to be suddenly a bit depleted in the back row forces, which is good to see that Max Eek and Toby Knight are both nearing fitness. I think Toby's getting back into training and Max is close to selection. So potentially we could see quite a few youngsters now from here on into the end of the season featuring in the back row. And we'll talk back three in a minute as well, because that's obviously an area that's got some issues. But yeah, it's great to see that those two lads could come in and have a really good end of the season, because through necessity, which is something we've been calling for, to say, let's get these youngsters in, Barry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from the adversity comes opportunity. So let's hope that those younger players get given a good chance in the absence of some of the more experienced heads, and let's hope they grab those chances with both hands, and let's have a bit of competition for the shirt next season, maybe.
And also, it's good to see that Alec Cleary's on his way back as well, because I mean, Alec is, he's a solid, dependable character, great around the team, full stop. Anyway, even if he's not playing, Alex, but he's one of those players that potentially 2 or 3 years ago when he came, he's been at the club quite some time now, but he was brought in when we went relegated down to the Championship. You thought, well, he's, horses for courses, but he's really stepped up and he's an integral part of the squad, if not the first team. And with Marco Riccioni off at the end of the season, he's got an opportunity as well now towards the end of the season to stake a claim to be there again next year, hasn't he?
Yeah, he definitely has. And I think if he can get fit by the end of the season and stay fit, then hopefully he'll have some time in training proving himself against people like Ricky Oney before then summer and pre-season, and then he can really stake his claim and say, I won that shirt and I deserve that shirt.
And I'm sure, knowing Alec as we do, that's the sort of attitude that he will carry through from now on in until the end of the season. I mean, he's a whole-hearted lad. He's enthusiastic, but also he's committed, which is great to see. Now, obviously, we mentioned Elliot Daly at the top. He's out for the rest of the season, Barry. Something that's been an ongoing feature, almost a topic du jour, as it were, every week on the Fezcast, is getting some pace and some speed and some agility into the back three. And okay, we went around to discuss last week's game against Bath, which was a much improved performance, albeit not perfect in any way, but Noah Kalori back on the wing. Noah's got to play, hasn't he? Tobias Elliott, he's come back in off of injury. He's scoring try after try. But then some of our most frightening players are trotting out on a field at the back end of a wood in leafy Bedfordshire, aren't they, for Hampton? I mean, Jack Bradken's got about 700 tries in the last 4 games, hasn't he?
Oddly enough, in the pub after Saturday's game at Twickenham, we ran into a couple of London Scottish fans who were less than impressed with Ampthill being absolutely stuffed full of Saracens players and giving them a right shoeing down at the Richmond Athletic Ground on Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I mean, they're not going to learn much. With all due respect to the clubs in the Championship, they're not going to learn much more by playing that level. They need to be given minutes in the Prem and they need to be given a chance. So obviously, it's with the last couple of weeks and the Champions Cup games and that, you can kind of understand perhaps not wanting to put them into that pressurised environment, but you'd want to see them give them some minutes in the main event now and see if they can push on.
Pressure's off, isn't it, Alex, at the end of the day? Because we're all saying it now. We're saying we're not going to get playoffs. We know we're not going to get playoffs. We know we're playing for a bit of pride. And it starts against Sale coming up away. It's going to be a tough old match. But Sale, Leicester Tiger, it's 6 games left at the end of the season. Let's just turn around, lads, and say, go and enjoy yourself. I mean, we spoke about it, didn't we, before? We talked about Reece Carey and said he plays rugby with a smile on his face. Well, I want to see that from every single player on the team, don't you?
Now the pressure's off. They might hope they'll try more stuff, because actually they're not trying to get a particular result. It's not like we need to win and that will put us into the playoffs. The more stuff we can try, hopefully, and then just get them happy playing rugby, and then that will hopefully help us build into next season.
The other thing to mention as well, this is my chance for a bit of reply to what the lad said last week when they talked about my criticisms of nines, which is a little bit unfair. I mean, I have broken one of my own scrum half's hands before now when you try to get ball out the scrum, but that was a long, long time ago. But talking about the scrum half, so, Charlie Bracken has come back in after a reasonably bad injury, a lot quicker than I thought he would do, but he's been absolutely flying. But we talked about prescriptive substitutions. Scrum half should play 80 minutes of the game. The same as hookers should play 80 minutes, number 8s, fly halves and fullbacks. They're the 5 integral positions on the field. So why are we changing a player in an integral decision-making, momentum-gathering position on 65 minutes? It just doesn't seem right to me. And I feel sorry for Ivan Van Zyl because he does take an awful lot of grief from us, and I expect he's probably thinking, oh, well, I haven't played last week, so nobody's going to give me any grief this week. But, Ivan will come on and he'll give you 100%. We're not going to argue that point there. He's a committed lad, and he tries his hardest, but he should be there this season now, I believe. He comes on if there's an injury, and that's it. Let's let Charlie Bracken run a game for the whole 80 minutes.
I don't quite get the thing with the prescriptive substitutions anymore. I mean, some of the weirdest ones you see are when they change a player 2 minutes into the second half. Why not do it at half time or leave him on for a little bit longer? But hey, this is one of my great ideas for fixing the game of rugby, in inverted commas, is to reduce the number of substitutes that you're allowed to bring on.
I mean, I'm old enough to have played in the days, Alex, where you had to literally be dead to be able to have a rigger substitute on. I mean, yeah, you won't remember the Monty Python and the Holy Grail with the knight who kept on. It's only a flesh wound, but it stores up problems in the future. But yeah, I agree with Barry. There's a certain moment where you say you should only be allowed to make 3 tactical substitutions. Have a bench of 8 players, but 5 of those players are used in case of injuries. And it would make the game a lot more open as well, because tired players will start missing tackles and improve the game, I believe.
You see actually occasions when teams use all of their substitutions and then they get an injury. And then they're playing with 14. And it's like, yes, they've used all their substitutions, but then that doesn't make for such a great game because they're then having to play with only 14 players. For coaches, why not keep some of your substitutions back just in case? We see it with Saracens one where Liv Apps will play 70, 75 minutes and then we'll put Tori Sellers on for 5 minutes at the end. But actually, Liv Apps can go 80 minutes and then Tori's there. If we get an injury in the backs, we then have that extra player.
The problem there is if you're that backup player and you're sat getting splinters in your backside because you're sat on the bench for 80 minutes every game, there have got to be opportunities where you get given an opportunity. But in that situation, if you're playing Gloucester at home, you might play your second choice scrum half from the start and give him 75 minutes. It shouldn't be a problem. It's like prop forwards, isn't it, Barry? I mean, prop forwards invariably are taken off on 50 minutes or thereabouts. We remember the days of watching Mako Vunipola, Exodus Paris, now off to Tigers. No, I don't like that. I mean, not saying I'd have Maku back at Saracens. I'm not sure whether, but, you know, it's a weird one. It'll be weird seeing him going out in a Leicester Tigers shirt next season. But, I mean, Mako used to look knackered from minute one, but he always used to put 75 minutes in, almost always. I mean, Jamie George, how many times have you seen Jamie George do a full 80 minutes either for Saracens or England? The problem is you're just building players now for a sprint effort when there's an 80 minutes. I mean, you suddenly think, if you're a prop these days and you're on the bench and your prop goes down in the first 5 minutes, you're going to have to play 75 minutes. And there's not many props in world rugby you can play 75 minutes these days.
It goes back to what you said before. You know, the idea of the game is that you tire out the big lumps in the pack and then you create space for the backs. And you don't get that when you're unable to change an entire front 5 on 50 minutes because they just never run out of steam unless something unusual happens. So, yeah, I mean, I would definitely be in favour of flogging the big guys until they fall over.
They like it, really, you know. That's better. You enjoy it. Well, look, we've done the injury list and everything. We've done a little bit. I mean, obviously, next week we'll be talking a bit more about rugby for the men and everything. But we'll have a break there and then we'll come back and we'll discuss the opening weekend of the Women's Six Nations and the Pacific Four as well. So over to you, Alex, for your heavy lifting.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to our last part of the Fezcast. And it's time to run the rule over the Women's Six Nations, which kicks off on Saturday with 3 massive games. First of all, France versus Italy. I didn't see the game, but it seems a fairly comprehensive win for France, which obviously shows that they are continuing in their upwards movement. They haven't had a slip off from the World Cup. But next up, we'll talk about Wales versus Scotland because Wales have had a torrid time over the last few years in common with their men's team. There's obviously an issue with Welsh rugby across the board that's been causing some problems. But like the men, they seem, and on this performance, to be taking a step in the right direction. And took Scotland, who'd beaten them by 30 points in the World Cup only 6 months ago, almost won the game, didn't they, Alex? And I think that shows a huge step up. And I think a lot of it's to do with a lot of those Welsh players going back and playing in the Celtic Challenge.
Well, especially came out right from the start, and you could see that it was going to be a very physical game, and they were being dominant. Actually, Scotland got their tries from being able to just kick the ball over and managing to get the right balance of the ball, get their wingers onto the end of it. But actually, Wales definitely showed we are not here just to make up numbers. We're going to put up a fight, and definitely showed that they improved from playing Scotland at the World Cup. And I think definitely Sean Lynn said, I want players who are getting minutes. It doesn't matter if they're going back to the Celtic Challenge because then they're at least getting consistent games. And that's more important than them being in a PWR side, but then just not playing or only being on the bench.
It's interesting, isn't it, that the 2 Saracens players involved in the game of the weekend both came off the bench. But both of them made a huge difference to Wales. When the game had just started to slip away from Wales a little bit, and Scotland had got a bit of breathing space, Donna Rose, Georgia Evans came on. And Donna in particular had a storming 25 minutes. There was one run she made through the middle, which was absolutely brilliant. But Wales were able to bring on a lot of experience and a lot of talent off of that bench that helped them. And that was great to see. And particularly for our two players who really did show a good account of themselves, albeit as substitutes.
Yeah, I think Wales have started to develop that depth that now they're not just going to put out a strong starting 15. Actually, they've got that depth to have a strong bench. And you have players who can come on and make a change. Donna did that at the weekend, but also you knew that bringing on Georgia Evans is going to keep up that tempo and keep up the physicality. And actually, that's what led them to be able to almost win the game.
It'll be interesting to see how Wales and Scotland develop over the Six Nations. But Barry, you were at Twickenham on Saturday for the big game against Ireland, along with 77,000 other people. I mean, what a fantastic crowd! I think that shows the development after the World Cup as a audience, as a spectator thing, in so much as that 2 years ago, England versus Scotland, England-France would have pulled that crowd in. Now, England versus Ireland has pulled that crowd in. There's no disrespect to Ireland, but they would be seen as a lesser pull because it's a bit more difficult for them to get there. The game's not as big in Ireland as perhaps it needs to be, but 77,000 people were pulled to that game. And I suppose the next logical step is to say that if they could do that for Ireland, then why aren't they using Twickenham for more games instead of it just being a one-off game? Now, I understand the principle of taking it around the country and making sure that people in the north, in the southwest or wherever can get to it. But, you know, like the men's games played at Twickenham, you would think that perhaps one year all 3 games, home games, if they have 3 home games, would be played at Twickenham for one tournament.
Just the thing about Saturday, England fans have travelled from all over the country to get to Twickenham on Saturday. We shared the train up from Waterloo with a couple of Exeter Chiefs fans who'd come up the night before and were staying over in London, come specifically to watch that game. They go and watch the Chiefs women quite a bit. And Ireland had a good number of fans there as well. There was quite a lot of noise when they scored their couple of tries towards the end. And yeah, it was a great atmosphere. My first experience of actually watching the Red Roses live, and I've got to say it was a great atmosphere, a different atmosphere to the men's game, but equally as enjoyable. Perhaps a little bit too much singing, and clearly Matt wouldn't have enjoyed the rousing rendition of Sweet Caroline that went round with about 3 or 4 minutes to play. But yeah, it was a great atmosphere and a great crowd at Twickenham. And yeah, there should definitely be more. If the point of moving the games around is to take the games out to the different areas, well, let's swap a men's game out. Let's go and play a men's game at St James's Park in Newcastle, for example, and bring another women's game into the early hours Twickenham.
I completely agree with that. And I suppose the key to it, Alex, is making it viable to go to Twickenham by making it a little bit cheaper, perhaps. I mean, I know the men's games, I mean, you have to have a second mortgage and sell a kidney to some of the games, whereas the women's games, very reasonably priced, and you'll get people in because it's a great product at a really good price. And if it is 30 quid a ticket or whatever it would be, then people will come up from Exeter and Bristol and Manchester and Newcastle and wherever to go to Twickenham because it's a great day out. And if you've got 3 great days out, well, whoopee, where do you go? Fantastic.
Yeah, and I think also you could have all of the Women's Six Nations games that are England home games played at Twickenham, but then actually take some of the WXV series games, which are essentially friendlies. So you're not competing for a trophy in a tournament. Take those around the country because you might get less fans for those kind of games where they're not competing for a specific tournament, but actually you can still take the Red Roses around the country to different areas and you're still making sure that they can play at Twickenham and actually because they've shown they can fill the stadium.
If you were to do that and you were to, say, play Canada and New Zealand in England's, in the WXV, for argument's sake, and you played Canada in Liverpool at Anfield or Everton's new stadium and you played New Zealand in Leeds or wherever. I mean, it's got to be a good idea, hasn't it, Barry?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helped grow the game outside of London, and there's definitely room to do that if it could be fitted into the calendar for all the other events that these stadiums hold.
From there, we have to move on to the pitch and discuss the actual game. And I don't know, I'm going to be maybe a little bit too critical. I don't know, Alex, whether you're going to agree with me or not. But let's be honest about it. It's the first real test after winning a Rugby World Cup. And a huge high of lifting that trophy for the Red Roses. And I just felt the performance was a little bit after the Lord's Mayor's parade. It didn't quite hit the heights. Now, I think an awful lot of credit has to be given to Ireland. He came over, were very canny and worked out what they wanted to do to nullify, in particular, Ellie Kildunn, which they managed to do for 95% of the game until she scored her try. I should have probably scored a second try as well. But, I mean, she'll have nightmares about that one, won't she, Alex? But I was slightly underwhelmed by the whole performance. And I can understand John Mitchell's point of view. It's the start of a new World Cup cycle. So I don't think he's going to be too fussed that it was a bit juddery, because he's brought some new players in. He's blooded some new caps. He's given some experience. He's put Holly Aitchison in at 10 ahead of Zoe Harrison, perhaps to give her a bit of confidence or whatever, but I just didn't think it quite gelled as well as perhaps you would hope it would have done.
It definitely wasn't their best performance that we've seen from the Red Roses, and I think it's definitely a case of implementing new players, new combinations, new tactics, where everything hasn't just quite gelled yet. As in, there are positions where Jess Breach was first receiver, and when you've got Holly Aitchison and Helena Rowland on the field, that shouldn't really be happening. We want her out on the wing where she can hopefully be scoring tries like the one she did at the weekend. Hopefully it will just take some time and a bit more practice, but definitely there are improvements that they should be making over the next few weeks.
That's quite an interesting point you made there about Jess Breach, Alex. And I think, Barry, Jess was playing on the weekend, a bit like Chris Ashton used to for Saracens men. They're very much a rugby league kind of performance, that she seems to have bulked up a little bit. She's got a little bit extra muscle on her and physicality, and very much used as that bludgeon when looking for work inside, with other players then filling out. And I mean, Meg Jones appeared on the wing a number of occasions, and indeed set up Jess's try. But it's an interesting way of using Jess, and I think, as Alex says, a little bit more time and practice and using it effectively in games could develop this into a very potent weapon, not only for England, but also for Alex Osterbury's watching for Saracens.
I did wonder if that was planned, or whether Jess, I sense she was getting a little bit frustrated at one point, because when England did spread the ball wide, it was very, very static. It was just basically going through the hands out to the wing on either side, and there wasn't a great deal of disguise or cunning about it. There was no inside runners. There was no inside balls. There was no offloads. It was literally stand pass, work it out to the wing, and then see if the winger could get. I mean, for me, England's biggest problem was that every attack that got outside the forwards, they were desperately looking to get Ellie Kildunn with her hands on the ball somehow, and they were just literally trying to pull Ireland from one side to the other and trying to create something for Ellie to come through from deep. But it never really worked for me, and I think if they'd shown a little bit more invention in getting the ball wide, I think they would probably have benefited more.
With two basically 10s playing the old New Zealand style of having 2 5/8s in Holly and Helena Rowland on the pitch, you would expect that inventiveness to be coming, and it really didn't, because, as Barry said, Alex, I think they did try and get Ellie Kildunn star quality, which undoubtedly she is star quality, onto the ball, but Ireland were wise to it. And every time Ellie Kildunn got the ball, she also got 3 green shirts around her.
Yeah, and Ireland clearly came with a game plan of, we've got to stop Ellie Kildunn. We can't let her get away because she will score. And I think that they almost, for every reason, didn't see that and were like, well, we're going to keep giving it to Ellie because at some point she will score, and she did. But actually, It's why not try something else? If they're trying to stop us getting through on the wings, why can't we go through the middle and try a different route? So it's almost just, if something isn't working, they just need to make sure they have a plan B of, okay, if they're going to target one specific player, then who else can we get the ball to who we know can also make a similar break?
Yeah, I suppose what was lacking there in having Holly and Helena on the field in 10 and centre, Barry, was a bit of physicality in that inside centre position that Tatiana Hurd has brought for a number of caps now there. And we see that Sydney Gregson's got called up to the England squad, hasn't she? So she's obviously someone who would bring that physicality into that centres. Meg Jones does it as well, but with Helena and Holly there, you never really got that physicality to fix defenders to then create the space, so that when you gave the ball to Ellie Kildown, she didn't have 3 players on her, she had 2 players on who she could beat.
That's probably a fair point. Maybe it was just that centre pairing didn't quite work out as they'd hoped. But let's be honest, we are nitpicking here. I mean, we won 33-12. We got the maximum points we could have done out the game. The girls will be disappointed they gave Ireland a couple of late tries, because really up until that point, although Ireland, for me, I felt tried a little bit more in attack than I've seen them do before, with some inside balls and some very clever lines picked, they hadn't really threatened England's try line until those 2 late efforts. But it was a decent performance. And I mean, for all we talked about Ellie Kildown, and she did drop the ball over the line at the end of the first half, but we'll forgive her for that. Her defence work, and it's the first time I've seen her play live, her defence work and her tackling is something else. She really does read the game exceptionally well.
And when you've got a player of that special attacking talent, you often forget those sides of it, but you do have to have that on there. Now, before we move into the pack, Alex, I do want to mention, obviously, Zoe Harrison came on at 10 on about an hour, and immediately she came on, it improved, I felt. The structure was there, the variation was there, and just the calmness about what they were going to do. There didn't seem to be any panic, where I think when Holly was there was a little bit of, perhaps it's because she's not the number 110, that she felt pressured into forcing the game a bit too much. But I felt she did force it too much, whereas Zoe's come on, she believes she's the best 10 in the country. We believe she's the best 10 in the country, and she played like the best 10 in the country, if not the world.
Yeah, I think she definitely came on and showed to John Mitchell that she should be the starting 10. Yes, he obviously wants to experiment with combinations and give players the experience on the big stage, playing in front of large crowds. But actually also, we have a Six Nations to win. So why don't we start our strongest players? So start people like Zoe Harrison, and then give Holly that experience against teams like Wales, like Italy, which are good teams, but ultimately aren't going to be threatening for the Six Nations title. And, let her show what she can do under less pressure.
The question to ask, Barry, is does John Mitchell, 6 months out of a World Cup, know his best 15? I mean, let's be honest about it. 4 of his best 15 are currently feet up, eating the rich teas, and eating for 2 at the moment, because they've decided to take that time out and have children. Am I right, Alex? Says Rosie Gallagher just stuck around in the air on that one as well?
Yeah, she has.
Yeah, so we'll have to say congratulations to Rosie and Mel on that one as well. That's the thing. Does he know what his best 15 is? And he's just going to have a tinker about because it's the start of a new cycle. And when it comes down to playing Scotland and France, which you would expect to be the 2 big goes this year, he's going to go a bit more full tat on that side of things.
Yeah, I think he is. No disrespect to Ireland or Wales, who we've already talked about, but they are not currently the strongest opposition to be playing. With England being so far in front of them, I think you can afford to mix and match and try a few different things. And also, I mean, we saw with the men's Six Nations, what happens in the first game is not necessarily an indication of how a team is going to finish. So England will be happy they've got the 5 points on the board. They couldn't have got any more. And yeah, I'm sure we'll see some more rotation and some more combinations being tried as John Mitchell, as you say, searches for his best 15.
Now, we will move into the forwards now, Alex, and mention, I think Ireland did come with one of their game plans being that they were looking to dominate at scrum time. And it never happened for them. And a lot of that comes down to Kelsey Clifford, who I thought had an absolutely stellar game. She wasn't mentioned in the player of the match talks, but she was great in the loose, as she always is. I mean, she's a battering ram and always goes forward and makes yards with ball in hand. But at scrum time, when an awful lot of pressure went on early doors, she stood up tall, she stood up strong. And Ireland were never able to get that domination at scrum time that they clearly felt they could do.
She definitely came out with a point to prove and did that, because staked her claim for that starting shirt at England, because Mackenzie Carson's coming back from injury. She hasn't really played since the World Cup. Then Hannah Bottom's struggling with injury. So actually, for her to be able to say, look, this is the kind of performance I can do, both at the scrum and in the loose, and say, I deserve that starting shirt, regardless of who else is fit. And I think she really did that at the weekend.
Yeah, she was really good performance from her. Now, I'm going to have a bit of a whinge here about a couple of players that I feel should be involved in it, in the situation. And we've had a little bit, you won't have been party to this, Alex, but we had a little bit of a to and fro on WhatsApp this afternoon about, first of all, Poppy Cleal has come out and I saw an Instagram post from Poppy where she said she was disappointed not to have been included. And I think given her form this season, I know she's an older player now, and I know she's got other things in her life outside of rugby with her burgeoning career in the police force. But she obviously feels that she could offer something to England. And given when they brought on the girl for her first cap, who's primarily a back row player, into the second row, and it did look like there's a little bit of lightweight. No Rosie Gallagher, no Abby Ward. There's quite a few second row players missing. That perhaps that experience that Poppy could give, along with the fact that she's having a really good season, before maybe she might have been in and around the mix. But the one player I think who's getting really badly treated by England at the moment is May Campbell, because Amy Cockayne is the best hooker in the world. You know, there's no two ways about it. I mean, and she had a really good game on Saturday. But May Shawley's the second best. I mean, she's playing for one of the top teams in the country, one of the top two teams in the country. She's scoring tries. She's great in turnovers. She's top of the leagues in turnovers, tackles, whatever. Okay, there's a bit of a question about her line-out throwing, but is she any worse or any better than anybody else who's coming? I mean, Connie Powell didn't really dig up any trees at line-out on Saturday either, did she, when she came on? So why is May Campbell not getting the chances that perhaps she should do?
Yeah, I definitely thought that May should have been the second choice hooker. She should have been on the bench, expected after the fact that she made the World Cup squad over Connie Powell. And I think whether he just wanted to give Connie that final opportunity to prove herself, and we'll see May in the future, I don't know. But I definitely think that she, should be in the squad.
My theory is that she'll be back in the squad for perhaps the Wales game or the Italy game. But Connie will start and May will get 5 minutes. And I think, she's got something like 12 and a half minutes in an England shirt over however many games she's played. John Mitchell is tinkering, and if he is turning around and saying performance is more important than result this way far out from a World Cup, surely May's got to be given at least one game to start and to see how she copes with that pressure, given that she is one of the form players in the PWR.
You definitely think she's going to get a chance at some point in this tournament. We just go back slightly on something we said earlier about the scrums and Ireland not having the edge on scrums. It's a very fair point. England definitely had the edge, but my God, the scrums were a mess in general on Saturday. The number that went down, that were reset, there was a couple of free kicks and the odd penalty here and there. But the scrum in total was a mess, and it was a shame because when it did actually work, England were definitely pushing them backwards, and all credit to them, they really did front up when they were able to get a scrum actually completed.
From what was perceived as a strength for Ireland, certainly turned into a weapon for England fairly early on. Lots to look forward to. Next week, Alex, it's the Calcutta Cup match, the old enemy of Scotland up in Scotland. I mean, that's going to be huge. I mean, Scotland are going to come out of that Wales game a little bit bruised, a little bit ego-dented, because I think they expected to be able to kick on again and get another statement win under the belt, which they didn't, and showed a few areas where perhaps England would be looking to exploit. How do you go into that? So you're John Mitchell now, Alex. How are you going into that game next week against Scotland?
Just making sure that we kind of have the physicality, because actually that's what Wales did well, was come out and be physical. So actually, if we can come out and be physical, get a few more tries than Wales did in that opening half, then actually we've got probably a better bench than Scotland with the retirements they've had since the World Cup. So actually to say we can come out and keep up this physicality for the whole 80 minutes, and then also we've got the players that when the opportunities come, we can get the tries and we can be kind of ruthless when we're in the 22, because that's one thing that Wales didn't have, was just that kind of ability to finish off their opportunities.
I'm looking forward to it, Barry. I'm going to take you'll be looking forward to watching that one on the telly next weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be a good game. Scotland, if we were having two flies running up a wall and one of them was Scottish and one of them was English, the Scottish fly would put in more of an effort against the English fly than at any other time in his entire life. So I'm sure they'll be well up for it, and we will need to be equally as up for it to make sure that we don't slip off the gas, as it were.
Wales at home to France, so that'll be interesting to see. And Ireland at home to Italy, so they'll be looking to get a win under the belt. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that next weekend. The other thing that's happened is the Women's Pacific 4 Series has kicked off as well, Alex. And good news for Saracens' involvement for Canada as they beat Australia on the weekend. And I'm just trying to find what the score was. I can't find it. You're quite right. It happens at about silly o'clock in the morning, doesn't it? And I can't find what the score was. So I'm going to rely on you to tell me what the score is. But good involvements from Saracens players.
Yeah, it was 24-0, and it very much was a game of who can play the conditions better. It was delayed. Kickoff was delayed by over an hour for lightning, and then it very much was raining and very wet. So actually, Canada, yes, they had to face a physical Australia, but also just had to play the conditions and adapt to that better. But yeah, it was good to see Julia Makale get a try, and then also to see Sophie Dugali come off the bench and not get injured.
That's the really important thing, isn't it? Because, when we talk about, the tail end of the season, coming after a Six Nations period, we've seen that Mo Hunt picks up a pretty nasty injury that's definitely keeping her out of the Six Nations and potentially the rest of the season, Barry, which is great news for us because, she's such a superb player when it comes to the end of the season. I hopefully we're playing Gloucester Harper in a final at the tail end of the season. If she's not around, that's great for us, isn't it? And, we would hope that Ella's going to be back, as Matt so indelicately put her, what she's currently walking around like C-3PO in Star Wars, which isn't great. But, if she can get back, but Tori and Liv come through it and unscathed, that's important at the end of the season. Keeping fit players on the pitch, isn't it?
There's so little between us and Gloucester in reality. I know we got a bit of a shellacking down there on the first game of the season, but I think we were just caught a little bit cold there. In reality, there is so little between the two teams that you don't want to see players injured, and you don't want to see that making the difference to either side. But yeah, it's crucial we try and keep as many people available to Alex as possible for the running.
Yeah, so don't pick May Campbell, John Mitchell. She's not good enough, mate. Look, let's finish the show up there and say thank you very much, Barry, and thank you very much, Alex, for your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. Next week, we will have an interview. I'm off down to Old Albanians on the Tuesday before we record, or before we broadcast next Wednesday. Waiting for Warwick and the club to confirm exactly who we've got, but I'm hoping for a big name. So that will be something to look forward to next week. But until then, I'll say thank you, Barry, for your time. Great to see you back. Hopefully the work doesn't get in the way of too much between now and the end of the season. And as ever, Alex, thank you very much for your insights into the women's game and rugby in general. It's always great to talk to you. We'll be back next week on the Fezcast with a big interview from the training ground. And whoever's in the hot seat, we'll work that out during the week and see where we're going. But until then, we'll say thank you, everybody, for listening in. And we'll say ta-ra from the Fezcast.
Cheers, all.
The Fezcast.